Hi everyone, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. So we're going to discuss UFC 251, which is coming up this Saturday. Really stacked card. Dana White's pulled out all the stops. Last minute replacement of Jorge Masvidal stepping in against Kamaru Usman. Great last minute replacement opponent after it looked like Usman wouldn't be fighting on the card. So we're going to break down the first card on Yas Island. Factor in the heat, the humidity. I don't know what the arena is going to be like. It seems like it's a purpose-built arena just for this run of events. So I do imagine the aircon and all those kinds of problems are going to be sufficient to keep the arena cool and hopefully negate the effect of the heat and the humidity. They're going to be fighting very early in the morning over there. So I really hope it's not a factor like we saw last time we was in Abu Dhabi, but I believe when they installed the air conditioning there, you're meant to give it a couple of weeks at least for it to fully kick in, and they didn't do that. So hopefully lessons have been learned, and it's going to be a nice, cool arena for the fighters to compete in, and we're not going to see that impact in the fights. What we will do, as we always do, is we'll just recap on the last event. It wasn't a good event for me on pre-bets, lost 3.5 units. Had Louis Pena closing a 2-leg double. We had Van Buren and Tisha Torres going the distance as leg 1, Louis Pena leg 2, 2 units. Didn't come in, bad bet. I don't know why I trusted Louis Pena, regret that. I can only learn from that. And also had a unit and a half on Mike Perry to win inside the distance against Mickey Gall. I don't regret that bet. He had the opportunities to do so. He looked like he was going to get the finish at the end of the second round. The bell went. He had man at the end of the third round. But Gall was, I guess, more durable than I anticipated, and he had a hotter start than I anticipated as well. He didn't start off too bad. I thought it was going to be all one-way traffic from the get-go, but Gall actually started okay. So didn't cash there. So 3.5 unit loss on pre-bets. And with regards to live betting, we managed to squeak just under a unit's profit. Wasn't a great event for live betting. We lost a unit on Yinyu Frey, took her after round 1, no regrets there. She lost round 2 clearly, but she was doing really well in round 3 until she got caught. We took a unit on Kamaru at even money, so that pulled back the Frey loss. We got half a unit on Juliana Rosa at plus 175. I think that was at the end of round 2, and kind of flip-flops on the main event. I did take Dan Hooker for a unit at around even money, and then I think that was at the end of the second round, or towards the end of the second round, and then from pretty early, I think by the end of the third round, Hooker was still quite a big favourite, and you could clearly see he had nothing left in the tank. So basically bought out of the Hooker bet and covered it with a bet on Poirier. So made just under a unit's profit on live betting. So it wasn't a great show for us. But as I always say to regular listeners, it's the long-term vision. If you're signing up for the Pro MMA Betting service, you need to have a long-term vision, guys. We can't win every show. I say this every podcast that I do. It's impossible. We have to win long-term. What you won't have with me is massive losing nights. You're not going to lose 10, 20, 30 units in a night with me. It's never going to happen. Equally, you're not going to have massive winning nights where you win 20, 30 units. But that's because I don't put a high percentage of your bankroll at risk. It's just ridiculous. It looks great if someone risks 30 units and has a 25, 30 unit winning night, but they're few and far between, guys. Don't fall for it. You need to look at the long-term trends, and people that are putting your bankroll or suggesting you put your bankroll, like 20, 30% of your bankroll at risk on an event, it's absolutely crazy. I can guarantee you these people that are recommending that you risk 20, 30, 40 units an event are playing with absolute peanuts. Anyone you're considering following on their bet sizes, I would definitely ask to see their bet slips, because I guarantee you people that are risking a third of their bankroll, getting close to half their bankroll, they're playing with peanuts. They are not real bettors. So tread very carefully with those types of people. So you're not going to have massive losing nights with me, but you're not going to have massive winning nights with me. But what we will do over the long term is win profit. Last year, £100 per unit members won £14,500 across the year with us. but you've got to buy into the service for the long term. I put a lot of effort into this service. I do a weekly podcast on UFC shows to prove that I am watching tape on fights. I'm not just throwing bets at the wall and hoping they stick. I'm proving that I'm going out there and putting a lot of work into the tape. I regularly put tweets out with stuff that I find from taping fights where perhaps it changes my mind from my pre-tape thoughts. So give us a follow on Twitter at Pro MMA Betting. All of our bets are tracked. Pre-bets are all tracked. Live bets are all tracked. There's links to all the trackers below this video. There's also links on the website prommmabetting.com, full transparency. And I post my bet slips and stakes on Twitter. I like to prove to members I am betting what I am tipping to them, and I like to show that my balls are on the line by showing the stake. And I'm not one of these people that are betting peanuts and asking people for money for a betting service when I'm not even a proven bettor myself and I'm still betting peanuts. So full transparency. But as I say, it is all about the long-term service. I like to compare it to the stock market. There's no such thing in life as a get-rich-quick scheme, guys. It doesn't happen. These things take time. So much like the stock market, you're not going to get rich overnight on the stock market, but you invest in it for years and years and years, you grow a fortune as long as you're regularly investing. And it's the same with betting. As long as you're treating it as investing and not gambling, you're being clever with your bets, you're not risking silly amounts of units, you're making educated bet sizes. There's a great opportunity to make money on MMA. So you have to buy into that full process though, that it is long term and it does take time, but you will win money over time. If you can't take having a losing event, betting is not for you, guys. You may as well step away, because it's going to make you do silly things. You're going to start chasing your losses. You're going to get stressed out. It's going to depress you. You have to learn to accept losses in this game. You can't win every event. It's absolutely impossible. You have to buy into the service long term. There will be rough spells where you lose more than one event in a row. It's going to happen if you're betting for long enough. You have to accept that. Accept it's part of the process. Learn from your mistakes and adjust and evolve. That's all you can do. The betting service, it's £195 for the year, guys. As I said last year, members using £100 units won $14,500. You can cover your yearly membership in one show if we have a good show, and then the rest of the year it's all about profit in your back pocket. So it's £195 for the year. You can sign up for a week, a month, 6 monthly. They're all available on the website prommmabetting.com. But 95% of our members are with us yearly. We've got over 150 members. We've got a great community on Discord. I set the Discord up for the live betting tips. So I freeze the chat during the fights so no one else can make any contributions, because you get a lot of chatter amongst the guys. But I freeze the chat during the fights so you can only see my tips. But what you will see is between fights, there's a lot of chatter going on, and even during the week, a lot of chatter going on, a lot of knowledgeable guys that are in there. It's not just, I imagined it, to be honest, just to be kind of newbies that weren't too familiar with MMA, but as I've learned from using this Discord chat, there's a lot of guys in there with a lot of knowledge that even I can learn from. I like to think of myself as an open book. I don't know it all. I like to think of myself as an eternal white belt, always learning, always evolving, always trying to improve the betting service. So there's a great community there as well, where you can discuss fights during the weekend and on fight night as well. And obviously we have the live betting service as well, guys. Boxing is back from this Friday. I know there's been some top ranked shows, but they've not been televised in the UK, so I haven't been putting bets out for them. I haven't been offering live betting for them, so I don't like live betting off of a stream, because you're anything from maybe 30 seconds to a minute to 2 minutes behind the live coverage, so I don't like it for live betting. So boxing is back in the UK this Friday. There will be live betting available to members. First time we've had boxing live bet since before the whole COVID-19 saga that's going on. So boxing's back. It's going to be back pretty regular as well. UFC is going to be going on an insane run from this Saturday. I don't know when the next UFC break is. It's just going to be absolutely relentless. We've also got Contender Series starting in August. You're going to have the Contender Series and the UFC. You're going to have 2 shows a week for at least 6 weeks. We've got a Wednesday show coming up next week, and then the following Saturday we've got a show. So we've got 3 shows in basically a week. The schedule is just going off the chart. So this was the last break last weekend. It's going to be hectic from now on. So hopefully we can finish the last 6 months of the year strong. And you know, we had the couple of months off. It's just been a weird year with everything that's happened, but Dana White is obviously still going to deliver on the amount of shows we'd normally get. It's just all a lot more condensed, so it is harder to tape, but I do this full time. This is my job, so my aim is to get on top of the tape ASAP. Is a little bit difficult at the moment. I've done next Wednesday's card bar 2 fights, which I'll do today, then I'll move on to the following Saturday's card. So hopefully I can have those UFC 251, the Wednesday card and the following card, hopefully I can have most of it done by the end of this week. And what I want to do is start getting at least 2 weeks ahead of the shows. So say for example, there's say today is Saturday for argument's sake, and there's a UFC not the following Saturday but the Saturday after, so in 2 weeks time, I want to have that card taped 2 weeks in advance, because what we're finding now is odds are being dropped a lot sooner than they used to be. Odds used to get dropped the week of the fight, basically, a week before at the earliest. But now we're finding that BetOnline are dropping a lot of the lines now. They've taken over from 5 Dimes, and they're actually releasing lines, and they're doing it really early. So it's making it harder to grab the value, because a lot of people are jumping on the lines that are coming out so early and taking away the value. So I need to adjust with that. I always talk about evolving and improving, and that's something that now that I am full time, I can do that. I can try and get ahead as much as possible, and even if it's a card that's a way off, and you know I'm nowhere near taping that card, if it's a fight that intrigues me, I can just go and cap that fight now, see if there's any value on the current line. Sometimes my mind does change after tape, but normally my gut's pretty right. But I do like to tape before I recommend bets to members, because I don't like going back to members saying, oh, you know, I think we need to buy out of this bet or reduce our bet size. It does happen from time to time, but trying to avoid it as much as I can. But yeah, the schedule is going to be full on, guys. So we've got boxing live bet on Friday. We're going to have UFC live bet on Saturday as well as the pre-bets. Wednesday we're going to have UFC pre-bets. We're going to have live betting as well. Following Saturday, live betting and pre-bets. Not sure if there's any boxing on in the UK or anything over in the States that's televised the following week, but Eddie Hearn's run of shows in his garden will be starting at the beginning of August, so hopefully we've got a few more shows in July on top of this one coming up this Friday. So I think that's enough of me talking about the service. Any questions, guys, feel free to email me, info@prommmabetting.com, or DM me on Twitter. My DMs are open at Pro MMA Betting. So we're going to break down the UFC 251 card now. As always, we'll start from bottom and work our way through. I'm not sure where this fight falls on the card, so I'm just going to discuss it first. So we've got Maxim Grishin coming in as a late replacement for Romanov, taking on Tybura. I did take the Romanov-Tybura fight. Grishin, I had a little look at him. I remember him from PFL. I went back and watched the Jordan Johnson fights. You know, Marcin Tybura isn't someone that I really want to bet. I do think he's on a downward spiral. I know he's coming off that win over Spivak, but you know, Spivak is not a good fighter. Before that, he got knocked out by Sakai, he got knocked out by Shamil. He got a win over Stefan Struve before that, but he got hurt in that fight as well. Before that, he got knocked out by Derek Lewis. You know, his chin seems to be going, and at heavyweight, that's not a good sign. You know, he's not a bad fighter, Tybura. He's a good grappler, but he's not the greatest wrestler. He's not the strongest heavyweight in the world. You know, I kind of do worry about where he's at. And the Spivak win, he got the clear decision win there, but it wasn't, you know, he didn't look great in that fight either. Grishin is a light heavyweight. He's coming in here on short notice. He's obviously doing the UFC a favour. He will go back down to light heavyweight after this fight. He's up there in age. He's 36 years of age, but heavyweight, you get away with being older. It doesn't matter as much. It's on a bit of a win streak. I mean, he's got a couple of draws in PFL. He had the draw with Jordan Johnson that ultimately he didn't go through, so it went down as a loss in PFL, because I think it's if you lose the first round, then even if you win the second round and it's classed a draw, you don't go through. It's just bizarre. He got the draw with Rama as well. But besides them fights, his only loss in recent times is to Ankalaev. I didn't go back and watch the fight for purposes here, but I have seen that fight in the past. I'm sure Ankalaev won, stopped him with ground and pound. It wasn't a knockout on the feet. Another loss to Kenny Garner, his last loss before that, back in 2011, submission to punches. Garner's a wrestler, so I imagine that was ground and pound as well. So, he's a difficult guy to put away on the feet. Looking at his record, you've got to go back to Shane Del Rosario, rest in peace, as the last person to put him away, and that was in 20 seconds. Just got caught cold. It happens. So you've got to imagine he's pretty durable on the feet. He's got good striking. I like him here. I mean, he is fighting at heavyweight, so he's out of his normal comfort zone. But I just think he can catch Tybura. He's going to be faster. He's got power. I don't, as I've already said, I think Tybura's chin is done. It's not a good thing that you're getting knocked out at heavyweight consecutively, and I don't know, something just looks amiss for me. The odds though just make it difficult. I know Grishin opened, I think some guys got him at like plus 140 when the line first opened, and if I'd caught that I would have had a stab at Grishin, but at the minute he's now the favourite. Well, I say that he's the favourite on some books. Bet Online he's actually gone back to dog odds, but he's still kind of around even money, so I don't really see any great value there. If you could get the plus 120, plus 130, plus 140 on him, I think it'd be worth a bet, but I'm not betting Tybura as a favourite. So I'm going to pick Grishin. It's a low confidence pick. As I said, Grishin's in on short notice, but I just think Grishin might be able to catch him with something. But as I said, I'm not betting the fight. He's not even at plus money. It's even money. I'd need plus money to consider Grishin here, but I will go with Grishin. I just think even though he's older, I think he's got less mileage on him. I think he looks a bit fresher than Tybura, so Grishin is the pick for me there. Next, we've got Martin Day taking on Davy Grant. So, quick look over the stats here. Martin Day, a couple of inches taller, 5'10 to 5'8. He's got 4-inch reach advantage. He's about 3 years younger. Strikes landed per minute. Martin's up at about 5.5. Davy's at 3. Strikes absorbed. Day's at 3. Grant's at just over 1.5. Takedowns per 15 minutes. Day is at 1. Grant's at just over 2.5. Takedown accuracy 66% Day, 47% Davy Grant. Takedown defense 85% for Day, 64% for Grant. So Martin Day coming in here, he's been out for some time. We last saw him against Ping Yang Lee back in November 2018, so he's had about an 18-month layoff here. It was his first fight back in the UFC. Well, he'd never been in the UFC before. He was on the Contender Series where he fought Jamie Alvarez down at 125. I definitely think he looks better at 135. He looked, I don't know, not malnourished, but he didn't quite look right to me at 125. Maybe the skinhead didn't help as well. Right, sorry guys, I'm not sure what happened there. But Davey Grant, so yeah, he's been very inactive, hasn't fought a lot since he got to the final of the Ultimate Fighter. Literally, it was almost 7 years ago now. So since the Chris Holdsworth fight back in November 2013, he's had 4 fights in the UFC. He has managed to get a little bit of regularity going in. 2018 he fought in July, then he was out for over a year again before he fought Popov. So this is the first time he's fought within 12 months since back in 2016. So he fought Popov in November, he's fighting again now in July. So he got the win over Popov. Split decision, shouldn't have been a split. I thought David done enough to win that fight, but Popov isn't very good. I mean, we saw him against Wineland, just got tooled by Wineland and knocked out. And Davey Grant was just kind of hitting takedowns. He was fighting long, using kicks from the outside, and he was just able to take him down basically. Davey has he's quite physical for a 135er. He's got a good win over Marlon Vera, but that is a very different Marlon Vera to the Marlon Vera that we see today. If they fought today, then Marlon Vera would destroy Davey Grant. So it's still a good win on his record, but Marlon Vera has made massive strides. He's also a lot more physical than he used to be. I didn't go back and rewatch the fight, but I remember Davey just kind of ragdolling him. That wouldn't happen there. Vera's filled out a lot. He's a lot more physical, but it's still a good win to have on your record. The Damian Stasiak fight was a fight he was on his way to winning, but he got caught in the armbar in the 3rd round. Then Manny Bermudez dropped him, locked up a quick submission. So Davey Grant, his aim here is going to be to try and drag Martin Day to the floor. Martin Day's takedown defence didn't look good on the Contender Series, but it looked a lot better against Ping Yang, who is a very physical guy, trains out of Team Alpha Male. He's got good wrestling. So I think that was a good sign for Martin Day here, that he can keep this fight vertical. On the feet, I definitely favour Day. He's got very good striking, very good combinations, puts everything together really nicely. So, I have to favour Day here. I think he can come out and put on a good show to start this card. But he's got to obviously keep the fight on the feet. Davey will be looking to try and bulldoze his way into the clinch and try and hit takedowns. Davey does have pretty good takedowns, but he's a bit loose on the mat. He's not great at maintaining control. So there will be opportunities, I would have thought, for if Day does get taken down, to get back to his feet. But I do have to favour Day here. He is a little bit difficult to trust. Just even though I think he got robbed against Lou, just the way he was in complete control, and then he allowed him back into the fight. And then if you look at his record, he's got a couple of split decision wins. He got knocked out by No Helen Hernandez about 3 years or so ago. Just things like that just make him difficult for me to entirely trust. But I do think stylistically this is a good fight for him. And Davey Grant, just so inactive. But I mean, at least he fought in November and he got 3 rounds in. He did gas in that fight as well. I don't know whether that was a case of it was just his first fight in a while, first time seeing round 3, where he needs to blow off some cobwebs. But Day doesn't gas. He's got a good gas tank. He's always strong in fights. So, if Davey is going to slow down again, he's going to have to bank the first 2 rounds and hope he doesn't get knocked out in round 3. But I have to go with Grant here. Day. He's currently sitting at around minus 170, which, you don't want to hand too much on Day, because, as I said, he's difficult to trust. But I don't think that price is absurd. I don't think it's a bad price. I was looking at the props. What did interest me, now Davies, all these losses are by submission. He's got 4 losses on his record, all by submission. I doubt Day subs him. So I was looking at Day by knockout, and it's plus 400. I don't think that's bad. If you can keep the fight standing, I think it will be pretty one-sided. So I don't think that's a terrible bet if you like your props. A little prop play there. But yeah, I will be picking Day for that fight. Next fight we have Carol Rosa taking on Vanessa Melo. I've not got a great deal to say here. Carol Rosa has crazy. She only had one UFC fight, but her stats are she lands 11 significant strikes per minute, and she also absorbs 11 significant strikes per minute. If that's going to be a trend for her UFC career, then she's definitely going to be in entertaining fights. It's probably going to be a similar fight against Vanessa Melo. Melo is 0-2 in the UFC. She came in on short notice against Irene Aldana. Showed how tough she is by going 3 rounds. Had little spurts of success in the fight. And then she's coming off a loss to Tracy Cortez, where first round she got outstruck actually by Tracy, and then she got out wrestled in the next 2 rounds. So I see this being a bit of a sloppy stand-up fight. Vanessa is slow. Carol is going to have the speed advantage on her. She's got some reach on her as well, but she's so hittable. She just stands there. They're just going to be trading. I think it's going to go to a decision. I went into tape thinking that Rosa's might be a bet here. She was around -200 then, but no, I can't pay -200. And then I thought about her decision line, which is near on even money. It's probably not a bad play, but honestly, I think Vanessa Melo might be live here possibly. Melo's got no TKO wins, and you look at her decision line, and Melo is sitting at plus, William Hill for her decision, you can get plus 333, which I don't, or Bet365 rather, which I don't think is bad, because I think it's going to be a close fight. Rosa is the younger fighter. She could have made improvements since that last fight. We've not seen her in a year, but I just see these two standing and trading, and I think it's going to be a competitive fight. There's no way I could recommend anyone touching Rosa's money line. Equally, Melo is plodding and slow. It's difficult to trust her, but I'm going to pick Melo here. It's not a confident pick, but just I think the line should be closer. I don't think it should be that wide for Rosa personally. It's probably helping Rosa that she's 1-0 in the UFC and Melo is 0-2, but stylistically, based on Rosa's UFC debut, the girl she fought doesn't seem particularly great, and it was a competitive fight. She got the knockdown in round 3, which clearly gave her round 3, but the first 2 rounds were competitive. It was probably Rosa was probably landing the more eye-catching shots that swayed the judges, but just how much she got hit was crazy. So I'm going to pick Melo, and I think there's a bit of value on Melo decision, to be completely honest with you. I think that's a bit wide. I think there's a bit of value on the money line as well, but I personally haven't put any money on this fight. It's probably a pass for me, and I'll just try and live bet it if live betting's available for this fight. But I do think Rosa's too wide, and I think you're playing with fire if you're using Rosa's money line either straight or using her as parlay fodder. I don't like it personally. Next fight we have last fight on the Fight Pass preliminary card. We've got Rudian Paiva taking on Valgas Zumagulov. So Zumagulov, I went back and watched quite a few of his fights actually. I actually watched his fight twice against Tagir, who was meant to be fighting at the end of July, but the fight's been cancelled unfortunately, because I really like Tagir there. So I watched a few of his fights, and man, this guy's been getting some dodgy decisions over in Fight Nights Global. I didn't watch the Tyson Nam fight, but I've been told that fight was pretty close and controversial as well. But the Tagir Ulanbekov fight, I don't know how he won that fight. He didn't win that fight for me. And Ali Bagatinov, he got the split decision. I don't think he won that fight either. He's basically a brawler. He's going to come in, he'll be entertaining. He's going to stand there and he's going to trade with you. Paiva is pretty happy in that kind of fight. We've seen he's got a solid chin. He doesn't mind taking one to give one. It's going to be an entertaining fight. I'm looking forward to this one. Paiva came into the UFC through the Contender Series, gave Kai Kara France a very competitive fight. I was on Kai Kara France in that fight, and I thought Paiva won it live, and I've rewatched it. I still think Paiva won that fight. The Bontorin fight, I bet Piver. Unfortunate what happened there, the cut. I'd bet Piver again at the same odds, and I bet Piver against Mike De La Rosa, where he got the knockout in the second round. He's definitely too hittable. He's very comfortable to take one, to give one. As I said, the De La Rosa fight was fairly competitive. He was just landing the bigger shots and eventually put De La Rosa down. So I imagine he's going to come out here and these two are going to probably trade. You look at Piver's record, he's 19-3. He's only got 4 KO wins. I think his stand-up is something that he has developed recently. If you look at 2 of his last 3 wins are by KO, so that suggests that he's definitely developing his stand-up. I think if you went back and watched his earlier fights, you'd probably find that he was pretty much a grappler. So I think that KO stat of only 4 KOs might be a little bit misleading. I think he's probably got more power than that suggests. He cut Bontorin as well before he got cut by Bontorin. He caught Bontorin. I think it was a lovely left hook counter. Cut Bontorin pretty bad. And he landed some good shots on Kai Kara France as well. So I don't want to sleep on his power here. And we did see Zhumagulov get dropped by Tagir, who isn't known for his punching power. And Zhumagulov's style is, he's a brawler. He's been stopped once. It was back in 2015 against Vartan Asatryan, who I watched against Tagir, and he's like a 2.0 version of Zhumagulov from what I could see, like real in your face brawler type. So I can imagine their fights are really entertaining. So I think it's going to play it on the feet. I have to lean Piver here. I do like him. Zhumagulov, I don't think his ceiling's that high. Like I said, he's had some controversial wins, but he's a scrappy guy. Here comes a fight, and Piver probably is going to give him the fight he wants. So it's probably going to be pretty competitive, but I just think Piver will be, he's the younger guy, he's only 24 years of age, he should still be improving fight to fight. I think it's his fight. I know some people managed to get on the opener for Piver, he was like -120, -130, I think that was a great snag. He's currently out at about -180, which I think is probably about right. It's probably where I'd cap the fight personally. He's dropped a little bit at some spots. He's -175. I saw him at -170 at Betfair Exchange yesterday. So, I'd be tempted to jump on Piver if some money comes in and he drops down to the maybe 160 area. His decision line is sitting at, I think it was plus money last time I looked, plus 110, which I do like, but it's plus 120 now at some books, plus 110 at William Hill. I don't think that's a bad price for Piver by decision. As I always say though, if you want to bet Piver, I would put most of your money on the money line as opposed to the decision line, because as I said, this is going to be these two are going to be landing shots on each other, and I don't want to sleep on Piver's power. I think his stand-up is something that has improved, and I think he does have some power in those hands. So I wouldn't overly commit on the decision line. If you like him, just take the money line and maybe sprinkle a little bit on the decision line. But I'm going to monitor that line too, because it looks like a bit of money's coming in on Zhumagulov, so hopefully that trend continues and I can get Piver at a lower price. But I'm going to go with Piver there, and I do think it is a decision win, but I wouldn't be shocked if he managed to stop the guy either. So that is the end of the Fight Pass portion of the show. We now move to the preliminary card on ESPN. First fight is Leonardo Santos taking on Roman Bogatov. So Leonardo Santos, very, very decorated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, one of the best grapplers we've had in MMA, and much like Davey Grant, he's just been really, really inactive. We saw him against Stevie Ray back in June, so about a year ago. Before that, we hadn't seen him for, it was almost 3 years. He had one fight in 2016, he had 2 in 2015, 2 in 2014. just been really inactive. I remember reading he did have some injury problems, but I remember he was finding it difficult to get fights as well. So he is 40 years of age now. Trains at Nova in Yao. His stand-up has really, really developed though. If you go back and watch, his early UFC run, or when he was on The Ultimate Fighter, just something I thought I'd throw out here because I didn't realise this. I never watched The Ultimate Fighter. The only one I ever watched was the very first one and the Shamrock Ortiz one. Otherwise, I've never watched it. But he actually fought Thiago Santos on The Ultimate Fighter at 170. Thiago looks completely different frame-wise, as you can imagine. Him at 170, and he lost to Santos. Santos took him down for 2 rounds and got a decision win. Just thought I'd throw that out there. But yeah, you can see he used to just be a pure grappler. Obviously, excellent grappling background, but he's really developed his stand-up. You can see it. He obviously stops Kevin Levy's strikes. I remember that fight clearly. I had Kevin Lee in some sort of double. He was a big favourite, like minus 400 or something, and bam, got dropped and stopped. I haven't gone back and watched that fight recently. I still think it was maybe a premature stoppage, but he put the man down. Adriano Martins, stood with Martins for 3 rounds. That both decorated grapplers. It kind of cancelled out the grappling side of things. And then Stephen Ray, he looked great against Stevie. Even before the knockout, he was blasting him with kicks. Just looked really, really good, fighting from range. And then that canter right hand that he landed, what a peach of a shot that was. Got a good win over Rocco Martin. They had a competitive first round. He took Martin down in the second round and got the submission. He's someone that's definitely developed his skills. We just haven't seen him in a grappling fight for 5 years. So the one concern with Leo is the cardio. He has slowed down in fights in the past, and we haven't seen him dragged into a grapple heavy fight since the Rocco fight. Kevin Lee was all stand up, Adriano Martins was all stand up, Stevie Ray was all stand up. So I'm not worried about the guy's grappling ability. He's a tremendous grappler. He gets on top of you. Anyone's in trouble, but it's just a high paced kind of fight that Bogatov is going to bring is how's Leonardo going to cope in that type of fight. Now guys, I honestly can't remember Bogatov too well. I done tape on this fight a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember exact specifics of his fights, but what I do remember is I came away, I wasn't overly impressed. I was quite surprised the UFC had signed him because he's very limited standing. He's all about getting takedowns, and he's not a Khabib type wrestler. He's not going out there and doing great damage on the mat. He literally is a bit of a leg humper. So I was surprised the UFC signed him. I watched his last. I saw the Mikhail Lebu fight, who some of you may remember from the UFC. I saw the Mikhail Silva fight. I think I found 3 of his last 4. Or maybe 4 of his last 5 I watched. But yeah, and I just wasn't overly impressed with his style. I mean, for him to win the decision here against Leo, it's very, very unlikely he stops Leo. He's going to have to win a decision. He's going to have to bank 2 rounds by basically just either leg humping Leo against the fence, just holding him down, and judges just score that less and less these days. Even if you have control for 3.5 minutes of a round, but you do nothing, and Leo is doing the better work on the feet for the minute and a half it's standing and landing some good shots, the judges are probably going to go with that. It's just harder and harder to win fights with that style. And the way I look at this fight is Santos has 3 paths to victory for me. He could knock Bogatov out, he could submit him, he could win a decision. Bogatov has 1 path for decision. He's going to have to drag Leo into a grindy, slow paced fight and try and wear him down and hope he slows down, which could happen because, as I said, we've not seen Leo dragged into a grappling kind of fight for 5 years. He is 40 years of age now. How is his cardio going to hold up? And it has let him down before, but what I would say is when you look at his older fights where he has slowed down, he didn't have the striking ability that he has now. He's a lot more comfortable on the feet now, and he's striking, I'd go as far to say he's a good striker now. He's definitely going to have the advantage on the feet here. And the other thing is as well, he can take Bogatov down. Don't think that this is just all whether Leo can keep it on the feet. Leo's gone out there and taken people down. He took Rocco Martin down and submitted him. He took Kevin Lee down. If you go and watch that fight, I haven't rewatched it recently, but I know he hits a double on Kevin Lee. This guy's got takedowns. He took Efren Escudero down. He can take people down. So I don't think he can't go out and take Bogatov down either. Especially he's got good trips in the clinch, Leo. Bogatov, that's where Bogatov's going to want to be. Wouldn't shock me if he ends up getting taken down. And even off his back, Leo's a decorated grappler. No reason why he can't, in some kind of scramble, get the back. Bogatov's got to be careful at all times here. And for me, he's got to fight the perfect fight. So I can see why people would be hesitant betting Leo because of the age. Haven't seen him dragged into a deep fight, but I think it's a very good fight for Leo to get a victory here. And I think if you wanted to, hedge, I think you can get a decision at plus 275. I saw at one book for Bogatov. I'm not into hedging because you can get yourself into a mess. Bogatov knocks him out. It's MMA, but or even just live bet it. See how round one goes. If Leo doesn't win round one, then you've got to think that he's probably in trouble because he's going to then have to win the last 2 rounds against a grinder. And Leo, if the guy's having success in round one with that style, it's probably going to continue because Leo's probably going to start to slow down. But I just have to favour Leo. He's just a better fighter. He's more well-rounded. This is a big step up for Bogatov as well. Let's not forget that. Best win on Bogatov's record is probably Lebu, who, he isn't UFC quality. I know Lebu from the kind of regional scene. He's not a bad fighter. He's a bit of the kind of litmus test for fighters that are looking to break into the UFC. And that was he was winning the fight, but Lebu shoulder went out or something, so that's why he got the stoppage. But I just have to favour Leo here. But I do hear concerns. I definitely couldn't bet him big because of the age, and if it does get dragged into a sloppy, slow grinding affair. But I think Leo has too many advantages to ignore, and he looked really good against Stevie Ray in the stand-up. I know it only lasted a couple of minutes, but even before the knockout, he was really good, spamming him with kicks from distance, and it's a big step up for Bogatov, and I'm not sold on Bogatov at all. So I'm gonna pick Leo here, personally. Next fight we have Makwan Amir Kearney, Danny Henry. Danny Henry, I still don't have a full read on him, but he came into the UFC against Daniel Tamor. Tamor took it on real short notice. He was getting absolutely tooled for a round and a half. Tamor gassed, Henry took over. He then come out, and I don't like to call wins flukes. I don't like to discredit, but that win over Aldo for me is just one of the biggest flukes. He catches him with a big right hand and laces up the submission. If they fought 10 times, I think Aldo wins 9. I just think the gods were smiling on Henry on that particular night. And then he fought Ige, got dropped quickly and submitted. We've not seen him since. He's been out a while now, over a year. And I think he's had some injury problems. I know he's had a kid and whatnot. So, I don't know what he's been doing on the financial side of things. Amir Kearney is coming off the loss to Shane Burgess, where he had a very good first round, took the first round, had a decent submission attempt on the first round, but what I did notice in that fight is just how big Shane is at that weight. He's just massive. And he just wore Makwan out. Makwan was taking him down a lot. He was using some body lock slams and stuff, and, high energy takedowns. He just wore Makwan out, and his gas tank just gave out on him, which kind of has been the problem that Makwan has had in his UFC run, is the cardio. His boxing's improved. He's got a good counter right hook from his southpaw stance, but he's all about the wrestling and the grappling. He's a very good wrestler, and he's a very good grappler. We saw him submit Chris Fishgold. We saw him grind out the win against Jason Knight. Arnold Allen, he was unlucky to lose that fight. Third round, he was on top. Allen got a very fortuitous stand up in that third round that gave him the fight. Otherwise, he probably would have lost that fight. So We did see him slow down against Mike Wilkinson. I've not watched it recently, but I know Makwan slowed down. I know he changed some things up for his cardio. I know he started doing a lot of road work and stuff before the Shane fight, but he still slowed down there. But as I said, Shane, very, very big 145er. And he had a good first round. But Danny Henry, I just can't see Danny Henry being able to stop the takedown. Even if Makwan does slow, I still think he's going to get the takedowns. I just don't think Henry has the athleticism to... We've not really seen him on his back. Obviously, Ige subbed him quick, but he was hurt there. But you did see him on his back against Daniel Tamor for a little while. I don't think Tamor took him down. I can't remember how he ended up on his back. But I think the ref stood them up, or Tamor stood out of his guard. But I mean, he didn't offer anything from Tamor's guard for it was about a minute or so. And Makwan's very dangerous with his submissions, especially if you do try and scramble back to your feet. If you give him kind of the front headlock, he's got a good anaconda, Das, those types of chokes. You've got to be very careful. And I know he got stopped by Shane, but otherwise he can be elusive on the feet. I know Jason Knight dropped him a couple of times, but Makwan's going to fight smart here. I think he's going to come out. He knows where he's going to have the big advantage. Danny Henry's very durable. We saw that in the Tamor fight. I know he got dropped by Ige, but against Tamor we saw that he's a durable guy. He doesn't gas, so it didn't look like he gassed. Very high-paced fight against Tamor. So I think Makwan just will come out here and just wrestle him, and I think he gets a submission or a fairly comfortable decision victory. So I go with Makwan there. I think I looked at his submission line. It was like plus 200. His money line early was around minus 160. I thought that was a good bet. He's been bet up now to over minus 200. It's always a little bit... I don't really like betting people above minus 200 when they're... when I've got a reservation about the cardio. But I just think... skill-wise, he's outgunned here. So I think if you got an early on that line for Makwan, it's a good bet. Next fight, we've got Zaleski taking on Salikov. I don't have a great read on this fight, to be honest. Salikov, the king of Kung Fu, obviously a very solid stand-up fighter. I'll give him the advantage on the feet in terms of durability. His work rate can be a little bit low though. He's a bit of a sniper type. He can be losing rounds and then bang, just gets the finish kind of out of nowhere. He looked a bit better against Nordine Taleb. Taleb looked a little bit hesitant, I thought, in that fight. I think he was worried about Muslims' counters. And then his last fight against Staropoli, fairly good performance. Had Staropoli badly hurt in round 2, couldn't put him away. Staropoli's a gamer though. He gave him a fair fight. So it's volume, and obviously with Salikov as well, we all remember the Garcia fight where he got taken down and submitted. Zaleski has shown he has got that in his back pocket. He did take down Millender and sub him quick. We saw him take down Konchenko as well, who I assume has more solid takedown defence than Salikov, and it's improved drastically since the Garcia fight. We haven't really seen it tested since then. On the feet, he's got that Capoeira background. He's been in some wars in the UFC. I definitely think Salikov could hurt him on the feet. We saw the Lee fight where he got stopped, and I think Konchenko dropped him or stunned him pretty bad at one point. So it's going to be interesting to see what Zaleski's strategy will be here. I think Salikov opened as the underdog, but by the time I only taped this fight yesterday, and I didn't go deep into it because I knew I wasn't going to have a lean on this fight, but I thought I'd have a quick butchers at it. Salikov is like minus 130. I don't really like that, to be honest. I'm just going to go, because Zaleski's got the plus number, I'm going to go. I think this is a very close fight. I think it should be more like a pick-em line, so I don't think there's a great deal of value here, but I'm going to pick Zaleski because he's the one with a plus number. But he's going to have to have some success, I think, with his grappling. I think if they do stand on the feet for 3 rounds, Salikov is at risk of giving the fight away on volume, but Zaleski, Salikov is very dangerous on the feet. He's hurt everyone he's faced in the UFC on the feet, or put them away. I don't think he hurt Garcia. I didn't go back and watch that fight, but he did have Staropoli hurt, and he stopped his other opponents. But Dos Santos is a step up for Salikov as well. But I just favour Salikov on the feet. But if Zaleski can mix in his grappling, then things could get interesting. And I think Zaleski will try to, but we just haven't seen Salikov's takedown defence or ground game since Garcia. It may have improved, but just because he's got the plus number, I'll pick Zaleski, but that really isn't a confident pick. It's not a fight that I've got a particularly strong opinion on. Next fight, last fight on the ESPN prelims. We've got Volkan Oezdemir taking on Jiří Procházka. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'll just call him Jiří. Jiří making his UFC debut here. You know, there's been a lot of excitement about Jiří for a long time now. He's got a really solid record. Fights out of the Czech Republic. He's been fighting over in Rising for the last few years. Look, he's done everything you'd want from a prospect. He's going out there. He's beating the guys he's facing convincingly, and he's stopping them. The one knock you can say is, you know, he hasn't really faced anyone. If you look at his last run of opponents, he's taken on CB Holloway, who's shot, Fabio Maldonado, who's shot, King Mo a year ago. That King Mo is shot. Brandon Housey, that was a weird fight. Housey was having some success with his wrestling, but it seemed like he just didn't want to be there at all. It seemed like he was pretty terrified on the feet. Quite a bizarre fight. And then he's got some other wins over some guys you might have seen in PFL. You know, he's never faced anyone great. He got knocked out by King Mo 5 years ago, and he did get a win over Vadim Nemkov, who is a good fighter, 5 years ago. But both have improved since then. I think it was a cardio issue with Nemkov. I think he was winning the fight, but it was one of them 10-minute rounds, and I think he quit at the end of the 10 minutes. But I haven't watched it for a while, but that's what my memory says. So this will be a step up for Jiří, and for that reason I find it hard to get a proper read on him, just because he hasn't been facing great opposition. Volkan is a gigantic step up for him. What I did see from the tape is, now we don't know about his cardio. Now against King Mo, that went into the third round, his cardio looked fine, but you can't judge someone's cardio until you've seen them tested. And as good as he looked going into the third round against King Mo, and he got the stoppage in the third round, he looked fresh as a daisy. There was just nothing coming back the whole fight. You know, it was all one-way traffic. So how would his cardio fare when he meets some resistance? I don't know. So honestly, I can't judge his cardio. Yeah, he's got nice stand-up. You can definitely see he's got stand-up. He's obviously got power. He's got a lot of knockout wins. But from the fights I watched, I mean, the CB Holloway knockout that looked like a guy with power. But I don't know. Just from watching the King Mo rematch, it seemed like he was. I don't know. I didn't get the impression that he was this gigantic puncher. But then, you look at he's putting people away like Fabio Maldonado. But I mean, the shot, CB Holloway shot, but he's doing it quick with kind of single shots. But I don't know. I don't know if he's as big a puncher as his record indicates. He obviously does punch. He's got 23 knockouts from 26 wins, but I just don't think he's like a one-shot killer. But we will find out as he moves into the UFC, and Volkan is extremely durable. So if he puts Volkan away, I will eat my words and completely take that back. But yeah, I'm just reserving judgment there. But it's just really hard to get a full read on him. And the UFC are definitely not giving him a gimme here. I'm quite surprised they're not kind of feeding him a few easy fights to build him up. They're throwing him right in the deep end here against Volkan, who has faced kind of similar guys to Jiří before. Jiří's, he's quite fast for light heavyweight, athletic, and Volkan's faced Dominic Reyes and Alexander Rakic, two similar fighters to that degree. So that makes this interesting. The Dominic Reyes fight, he lost a split decision. There's a lot of controversy around it, but I think Reyes won that fight. I think a lot of people were being swayed by the commentary on that fight. And then that Rakic fight, very close fight again. He done a lot of damage to Rakic's calf in that fight, and that is the one thing you can see from Jiří. He's got quite a wide stance. He is there to be leg kicked. You've only seen a few examples of it, but I think it was King Mo in the rematch. He hardly threw any kicks, but he did land some heavy kicks that kind of, I can't remember if it was King Mo. I think it was King Mo that actually knocked him off his feet with a low kick. And you even saw CB Holloway land some heavy low kicks. He definitely looks like he is susceptible to them. And Volkan has added them to his game. We saw him, he was throwing them against Latifi. Didn't really do any damage against Latifi, but Latifi's calf's probably 4 times the size of an average human's. But against Rakic, there definitely was damage that was done. It was grotesque swelling on his calf. It didn't seem to immobilise Rakic too much, bizarrely, but I bet it must have hurt when he was getting whacked on it. So I imagine that's going to be a game plan for Volkan here. He's going to definitely attack the legs of Jiří, and he is very durable. I mean, I don't ever remember him being hurt in the UFC. I know Cormier got the TKO, but it was, I think it was a crucifix on the floor, and he wasn't hurt. He was just getting punched in the head non-stop, so the ref just stopped it. But he's very, very durable. And let's remember, he's got some power himself. He's got them quick KO wins, if we all remember, over Serkinov and Manoir, and he put Latifi away. The guy's got power. His cardio has looked better, but he does slow down in fights. He did slow down in round 3 against Reyes. I thought Reyes won the 3rd round. They both slowed in that fight. So, if Jiří can maintain his cardio over 3 rounds and keep his output going, then I kind of favour him to win round 3, but I just can't judge his cardio. It's just a really hard fight for me to call. I put some money on Volkan before I taped it. I got about -150. He did get bet up earlier in the week, or late last week, to like -170, -180, which I thought was too high. He's back now around -170. I don't love the bet that I have on Volkan, to be completely honest with you. I might even buy out of it just purely because I just don't feel like I've got a proper read on Jiří. But I think the price I got was okay. But I don't like betting on assumptions, and I just think there's a lot of assumptions that need to be made about Jiří. He hasn't faced anyone great, but he's done what you'd want from a prospect. He's won those fights and he's won them convincingly. But Volkan is a gigantic step up in competition, so I'll go Volkan, guys, but I don't really think there's any value on the line currently. I can't fault anyone that's betting Jiří at the current number, but I don't think you can go big on this fight, whoever you like. I really don't. And if you like Jiří, I honestly think there's some value on Jiří decision, because I'd be very surprised if he stops Volkan. Volkan is just so durable. Jiří decision, let's have a look. I did look before and it was about +700, I think. Try and find it. Oh, well, it's got bet right down. I'm sure I saw it at like +700. It's like +400 now. Yeah, I don't like it now. Obviously, people are seeing Volkan's durability and probably looking at King Mo going to the 3rd round, and people have bet that right down. Yeah, the value's gone now, unfortunately. But that +700 was looking good. But yeah, it's just, I'll pick Volkan just because it's a massive step up in competition, and because he's very durable, and Jiří's been winning his fights by stopping people. There's just a lot of and Volkan has beaten similar guys. Well, lost 1-1-1. Rakic, you got the win over, and Reyes he lost to, but both fights very close. You can probably make a case for either side, so I wouldn't be surprised to see another close fight here. So I'm tempted to pick Jiří, honestly, at the current odds, but it's a stab in the dark. It is a stab in the dark, so I will go. No, I'm going to pick Jiří. I'm going to pick Jiří. I just don't think there's value on the Volkan line. As I said, I'm not confident here because there are unknowns with Jiří. It's a big step up in competition, but he does have the speed. I can just see it being. I can see if it goes to a decision, I can just see it being a close fight. Volkan, he can definitely do damage with them low kicks. Jiří needs to be careful there. I'm not sure if there's anything he can do. He's got that wide stance. He's heavy on his front leg. But just where the line sits currently, I'm gonna pick Jiří here. But as I say, it's definitely not a confident pick. I'm just going where I think the value is, and I just think that line's a little bit too wide on Volkan. Jiří could prove to be a duff. You often see it. Hyped prospects come in and they just flop. But I think the line should be tighter here for the unknowns with Jiří. We can't necessarily, even though they're unknowns, we can't just assume they're negatives. Like, he's definitely going to gas, or he's definitely going to get outworked. We don't know that. Some people deliver when they step up, and he's very experienced, Jiří. As much as he hasn't fought at this level, he's got 30 professional fights, so he should be comfortable in there. And he's fought in Rising, big arenas. He's used to that kind of thing. He's probably fought in the big arenas in the Czech Republic. They've got some big shows over there. So I'm going to go with Jiří. And I normally love fading Czech guys, but for a Czech fighter, he does seem like a decent prospect. Even if he loses here, I think he's going to be in the UFC for a while. So I'll pick Jiří just based on the odds there. And bear in mind, I have got about 500 quid on Volkan. I may buy out of it. I'm going to think about it over the next couple of days. So we're on to the main card now. I'm not even touching on this fight really, guys. Amanda Ribas, Paige VanZant. It's a showcase fight for Amanda Ribas. Paige VanZant is fighting out of contract. The UFC obviously wanted to go out on a loss, and Ribas has looked really good. So the money line is crazy. She's like minus 900. I don't know how anyone's betting it up that high. People are parlaying it and so forth. I think the only value you can find in this fight is if you look at Ribas to win inside the distance or the under, that kind of thing. I think if Ribas comes out with a grapple heavy approach, I definitely think that she could potentially stop Paige. We've seen Paige, she was getting absolutely dominated by Rachel Oezdemir in her last fight on the mat. I think Ribas could come out and just put it on her on the floor with ground and pound and submission attempts. If she opts to keep it standing, I think it's less likely. It's just, women's MMA, it's very hard to get standing knockouts. And Paige she is tough. She's not just going to quit. So that's the only way you could look at finding value there, I think. Bet DSI, I've got the over 1.5 at minus 238, which, to be fair, women's MMA, Paige VanZant is durable, but, we did see her get choked by Michelle Waterson as soon as she got her back, but she escaped a lot of submission attempts from Rose Namajunas. But I just think it's going to be very one-way traffic, this fight. So I think you need to just look at if you think Ribas can stop her. I personally think it's 50-50. So let's have a quick look at the odds. It's plus 100, so that's exactly where I think it should be. So not really any value on that fight, guys. So let's move on. But yeah, Ribas is the pick there. So next fight, we've got Jéssica Andrade taking on Rose Namajunas. I went back and watched the first fight. My memory was off completely. I thought Andrade was starting to take over in round 2, and she was having a bit more success, but Rose was still boxing her head off in round 2. And Rose hadn't slowed nearly as much as I thought. It looked like she was slowing towards the end of round 1. She seemed to recover well between rounds, and she seemed okay in round 2. Maybe she was a little bit more flat-footed in the second round, but she was still comfortably winning. Slam, very low percentage. It is interesting though, Rose is actually, she's not with Trevor Whitman for this fight, I don't think. It looks like she's been training with Greg Nelson and with her partner Pat Berry. So I don't know what that means for her, because I don't, as I always say, I don't really care about outside factors. I just go off what tape tells me, guys. But with Rose, she is one of those that the mental side of the game, it's a big factor for her. But having said that, I remember before the Joanna fight, it looked like she was going to cry at the stare down, and she come out and beats her. So, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not even going to factor it into my capping. But yeah, I went into tape thinking I was going to be betting Andrade at like plus 160, plus 170. I think she was plus 180 maybe when I looked. But I just couldn't. She was just outclassed. And she's coming off a knockout loss herself, Andrade. She got dropped by Rose as well. Is her style starting to catch up with her? I mean, it's women's MMA, so it's always, even, it's very rare. I don't really recall looking at someone thinking, is their chin going? You just haven't really seen it in women's MMA. But Rose is, she's a sniper. She's really pinpoint with her shots. Now, she's not a big puncher, but she's very accurate with her shots. And if Andrade, and is Andrade's style going to be the same? Is she going to be a bit hesitant coming off that KO loss? Or is she going to come out and fight the same? I wonder where she is mentally. But just after rewatching the first fight, I'm not playing Rose at like minus 200 or whatever she is now. I think she's still around there. But just the way she outclassed Andrade, I just can't play Andrade either. And even Rose's decision isn't. I'm not even that keen on Rose's decision, just because she's going to land big shots on Andrade. Where is Andrade at? Where's her chin at? And just, Rose said before the first fight she was going to take her down and take her back and sub her, and she did have a decent takedown attempt on Andrade in the first round, and Andrade did she didn't manage to take Andrade back, but Andrade did give her back to get back to her feet. So, I think the stoppage is in play there as well. So it's just a fight I haven't touched. I just didn't see enough from Andrade in that first fight, and I don't. At the same time, I don't want to be betting Rose at like minus 200, because if you get the normal Jéssica, she's going to come hard. It could get sweaty in the second half of the fight. We didn't quite get there in the first fight, but like I said, Rose didn't slow down as much as I thought, and she was still winning the second round. Like, it looked to me like something big was going to have to happen for Andrade to win that round. So Rose would have been 2 up, and then Andrade would have gone into the third needing the finish, and I just don't know. I've got to pick Rose. I think I've got to pick Rose just based on the first fight. So I'll go with Rose, probably by decision. What is the decision line at? Let's have a look. Rose to win by decision, plus 150. It's not great. Andrade. Look, Andrade KO, you can get like plus 550, which, I don't think it's bad. The first fight is a slam, it's really low percentage, but, if Andrade did start getting to her, but I don't see Andrade winning the decision. I just don't. I think she's just too outclassed. I think if you really want to bet Andrade, look, she's at a nice plus number, so, as I always say, you've got to be careful. But if you're not confident and you just want some action, I don't think Andrade KO is the worst bet in the world. But if you're really confident in Andrade, stick most of your money on the money line and maybe sprinkle some on the KO, because the KO is quite high. But, she did win by KO, but it was a low percentage outcome. So I'm looking forward to the fight, but it's just the prices just aren't there for me to bet either side. Next, we've got our first title fight of the evening. We've got José Aldo taking on Petr Yan. Really looking forward to this one. I thought José Aldo looked pretty good against Marlon Moraes in his first fight at 135. I bet Aldo there. I got him at about plus 170. I thought the line was crazy, and he looked good. Competitive first round that he just lost, and he come out, clearly won the second round, and it looked like the momentum was completely with him. Looked like he was going to win the fight. He completely controlled the second round, and in the third round he come out, pushed forward the whole round, but he just didn't throw enough volume. And I rewatched it the other day, and 'cause as I said, I bet Aldo, and at the time I remember watching it live being like, where's the volume? But honestly, I think the problem he had more than volume was, I think he struggled with Marlon's speed in the third round. It seemed like Marlon had a good start in round 1, round 2. Marlon slows down, but it seemed like Marlon kind of took round 2 off perhaps to save himself for the third round, and the speed was just too much. Now Aldo didn't look slow at 135 at all. Marlon is very, very fast 135er. So I don't think speed is an issue for Aldo at 135, but I think that was the issue there against Marlon in the third round. I think it was the speed. And Aldo has kind of changed up his style. He's a lot more on the front foot now. You saw it against Volkanovski as well. Now, I go back to the speed issue, but against Volkanovski, he didn't throw enough. So I don't know whether I'm reading too much into the speed or whether just Aldo is having a bit of a problem pulling the trigger. Because against Volkanovski, there definitely just was a severe lack of volume. I mean, he got held up on the fence for periods in that fight, but he just wasn't letting his hands go enough in that fight across the 3 rounds. With Marlon, it was more just the third round, but I don't know whether it was the speed or not, thinking about the Volkanovski fight. So that is a potential issue for Aldo, is getting that worked. Now, if this was a 3-round fight and these odds were the same, I would be very tempted to bet Aldo here. I think he looked strong against Morales. I don't think he looked faded. His cardio looked fine. He took the shots of Morales fine. Obviously, he's used to being hit by 145ers, but sometimes when you cut that extra weight, it jeopardises your chin. But his chin looked okay. He looked good to me. He looked big, strong, powerful at 135. But historically, Aldo has slowed down across 5 rounds, and Petr Yan is someone that is going to bring a high pace. Now, I'm high on Petr Yan. I've bet him in every single UFC fight except his debut against Ishihara. But this is a big step up in competition. He's fought Ishihara, Son, Douglas Silva, Andrade, John Dodson, Jimmy Rivera, Uriah Faber. John Dodson is a respectable opponent, but he's a 125er for all intents and purposes. Petr Yan looked very good in that fight, completely dominated him. He did get dropped at one point. The Jimmy Rivera fight is a little concerning. Without those knockdowns at the end of round 1 and round 2, he lost them rounds. And even round 3 was fairly competitive. He was getting caught by shots from Jimmy. I remember Uriah Faber, when he drops when Uriah gets back up, he lands a solid shot on Yan. Yan is there to be hit. He can be hit. And even in the Son fight, I think Yan has improved in the last, it was nearly 2 years ago now. I think he has improved, but he got hit in that fight as well. Now Aldo is going to land shots, and he probably hits harder than anyone Yan's fought. Remember, he's a 145er that's moved down to 135. So this could be interesting early. I honestly think that Aldo is a live dog here, but the longer the fight goes, the more it will favour Yan. It is difficult to see Aldo winning a decision across 5 rounds, but I think the line's too wide. And although if you said to me it's a pick'em, I would pick Petr Yan, but at these odds, I'm going to pick José Aldo. He is, where are the odds now? Yan's up at some books he's minus 250. Aldo's plus 200. Look, I get the angle. Petr Yan, young, upcoming fighter. He's never been stopped. He's got 1 loss, and it's a controversial loss. Killer, great cardio. José Aldo, the old man, on his way out. And Aldo hasn't got, he's not going to be around that much longer, I wouldn't have thought. But I don't think he's showing any particularly heavy signs of decline. I think he looked fine against Marlon Moraes, and I do think he lost round 3. I know some people say he won that fight. He didn't. He got outlanded in round 3. But I think he looks fine at 135. I don't think he looks bad at the weight at all. He's got that really low body
fat percentage. I think it just helps with guys like that, kind of like Barboza, who moved down and looked okay as well. And yeah, he lost the fight to Volkanovski, but before that he got the wins over Renato Canero and Jeremy Stevens. So I don't think we should just assume that Aldo is on a big decline here. I mean, 2 losses to Max Holloway in fights where he started well, and then obviously the Conor McGregor loss. It's not like he's been losing to nobody's. Volkanovski, the champ, beat Max Holloway, and then Marlon Moraes in a fight that he could have won. And Marlon Moraes was up until his fight with Cejudo, he was on a killing spree. So while I do favour Jan, I just think those odds are wide, and I do think the fight favours Jan the longer it goes. So if you're gonna bet Jose Aldo, I wouldn't go so big as to you can't live bet your way out of it, because I think Jan does take over the longer the fight goes. So if you bet Aldo, I wouldn't go, as I said, so big that you can't cover that bet on live bet, because I think it's highly likely that Aldo starts well. I mean, if Aldo doesn't win round 1, then he's probably not going to win the fight, but I can definitely see Aldo winning the first round, maybe even the second round. But I just think Jan will start to have more success as the fight goes on, and he will bring a high pace. And the other thing that is a key question mark here is Petr Yan always fights on the front foot. Jose Aldo has changed up his style. He's been pushing guys back. He was on the front foot against Volkanovski. He was on the front foot against Marlon. What happens when Petr is pushed back? How will he respond to that? What's he going to be like off the back foot? Now Yan can fight out of both stances, can switch orthodox to southpaw. And another thing to note is Jimmy Rivera did damage his leg. He forced Yan to fight that fight. I think it was the second half of the fight southpaw. Because of the damage he done to his leg. Now, I'm not going to go on about Aldo's leg kicks. We haven't seen them for so long now. I did look over the stats when I looked at this fight, and the last time he's thrown over, I think it was over 20 leg kicks, or 20 leg kicks or more in a fight, was, you had to go all the way back to, I think it was the fight with the rematch with Chad Mendes that went 5 rounds back in 2014, and also against Mark Hominick. Even the fights in between that were going like 5 rounds, that if you look at the stats, he's never thrown lots and lots of leg kicks. I don't know if it's the Uriah Faber fight. That's the one where he throws the most leg kicks. I think it's around 30, and he done a lot of damage to Uriah's leg in that fight. But apart from that, the 2 I just mentioned were about 20, and every other fight I don't think it is above 10. So he was throwing them against Stevens. He threw about 4 in the first round before he got the stoppage, and I know he had some kind of accident where he hurt his leg, and I think that has caused a reduction in his leg kicks. And then he was not throwing any against Volkanovski or Marlon, but I just can't trust him to do it. But there's definitely a hole there that he could exploit with Petr Yan. That Yan can fight out of both stances, but I can definitely tell you Yan wouldn't want to be facing Aldo over 5 rounds where he has to fight southpaw the whole fight. So there is some opportunities here, but I just I do favour Yan. But as I always say, it's a betting podcast. I go where I think there's value, and I think there's value on Aldo, but I think that it's unlikely he can win this over 5 rounds, and if we get to the championship rounds, it's probably Jan's fight. But for me, I'm going to pick Aldo here. But as I said, be ready. If you live bet, I'd be ready to switch sides depending on how the first couple of rounds go, because you might get obviously you do need a good line on Yan, so you'll need Aldo to start well, but I think it's a good live bet fight potentially, especially if you like Aldo, because I'd be surprised if he ends up just getting blasted out by Jan early or loses a lopsided like 50-45. If it goes to a decision, I would expect Aldo to have probably won a couple of rounds. So I'm going to pick Aldo just purely based on value. As I said, if this was if you asked me to pick who I think wins, just my personal opinion, I do lean Jan, but as this is a betting podcast, I have to go with the value. So I'm going to pick José Aldo here. Next fight, we've got Volkanovski Max Holloway rematch from their fight not so long ago. I scored it 50-45 Volkanovski pretty clearly. You want to give Holloway a round. I'm not going to argue with you, but I just think 2 48-47s is pretty bad. I don't see how Max won 2 rounds in that fight, and it does concern me a little bit because this is obviously a case of judges not scoring the leg kicks as they should. And Volkanovski, a big part of his game will be the leg kicks again. So if Max does a little bit better in the stand up in a couple of the rounds, I just worry that judges will, he could wrangle a kind of split decision that I don't feel he deserves. But that aside, I just think it's a big ask for Max here. He's used to being the fighter that pressures. He tried to against Volkanovski in the first fight, but Volkanovski was, whenever Max will close the gap to get past the leg kicks, which he has to do. He can't stand at range. He's just going to get his legs kicked to pieces. You can't fight Volkanovski like that. He has to close the gap. But when he was trying it in the first fight, Volkanovski was landing counters on him that he's got power, Volkanovski, and it was backing Max out. And I don't think Max liked the power that was coming back at him. So he'd come in, he'd try and land, he'd get landed on the counter by Volkanovski. He'd have to back out, and then he's stuck at range again. Against a better leg kicker who just chewed his legs up, forced Max to switch stances. He had to fight southpaw for an extended period. Eventually he went back to orthodox, but Volkanovski just fought the perfect fight, and for me, as I said, I thought it was a clear 50-45. So it does worry me that two judges gave Max 2 of the rounds, but from my point of view, with how I scored it and how I saw the first fight, I just think it's a tough fight for Max to win, because, as I said, he needs to close the gap. But it's not even like Max is going to knock him out with one punch. He's not that type of fighter. The way he beats people is he grinds you down, out volumes you, wears you out. But Volkanovski's got great cardio himself. He won't be bullied by Max. And he has power. He will fire back at Max when Max comes in, and Max was backing back out because he didn't like the shots he was getting caught with. So it just seems a tall ask for Max to win this fight. So I have to go with Volkanovski. I don't love the betting line. Where is it today? A lot of action came in when Max came out and said that he hadn't had any training partners and all this. I don't buy into any of that. I don't believe it. I think if you want to bet Alexander Volkanovski, you should be betting him based on him facing the best version of Max Holloway. And if you think this line holds value, I can't really bet. I mean, when I done tape, Volkanovski was about minus 190, but I don't really want to pay that price on him. But just because I'm just worried about the judges, and because he is leg kick heavy, just the judges favouring Max's volume, if he can get some volume going and if he can land a few more headshots. I think Max should throw more leg kicks as well. I mean, he's not gonna out leg kick Volkanovski, but he should fire more when he is at range. At least keep busy, try and keep up in terms of the striking stats. But yeah, I just betting against Max Holloway when Volk's like minus 250. He's getting towards that. No, when I done tape, I said I'd take him again. I'd bet Volkanovski if he dropped to like minus 150, but I'm not going to see that now. Not since Max came out and said all that. It looked like the line was coming in a little bit, but it's gone back out. So there's not really any value there for me, I don't think. If 3 of the judges had scored it 50-45 or two 50-45s and one 49-46, I probably would have taken the plus 190 when I done tape a few days back, but it just makes me nervous that two judges had it 48-47, you know. And I always say this, that the leg kicks just aren't scored well enough, and that seems like a clear indication of it. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but it just rewatching that fight, I thought it was pretty clear 50-45. You know, maybe you can make a case for a 49-46, but 48-47, in my opinion, no, that's not right. So yeah, I just need Volk. I'd need Volk a bit cheaper, I think, but I just can't see what changes Max can bring that can really make the fight much different from the first fight. So, and if he does get more aggressive, you know, he's more liable to be cracked by Volk's hands. So no, I don't expect a stoppage, but Volkanovski does hit hard. So, and yeah, I just think it's a tough fight for Max. So I'm going to go with Volkanovski again. Next, the main event, we've got Kamaru Usman taking on late replacement Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal stepping in for Gilbert Burns, who tested positive for corona. I personally think this is a more interesting fight. Now, obviously with Gilbert, Usman probably wouldn't have used his wrestling. I think he probably would have used a lot of cage hugging to wear Burns out. We've seen Burns slow down at fights at welterweight that were competitive. The Woodley one wasn't, but the ones against Gunnar Nelson and Konchenko, we saw him slow down. I know he took them on short notice, but I think part of Usman's strategy would have been to try and wear him out, put him on the fence, and he would have had to have been careful early on the feet, because Burns' stand-up has come a long way and he's got some power. But I just think Masvidal just represents some different issues. Now, obviously, Usman will be more willing to wrestle here and take Masvidal down. You know, he's a different opponent stylistically, someone that he probably wasn't training for to take down, whereas now he's got someone he will want to take down. Is that going to affect? Is his wrestling going to be affected by that at all? You know, I don't know. Probably not. But he is going to have to change game plan here. I think with Jorge, it's going to be a case of just put him on the fence. Jorge does. I think he can slow down. You know, he was breathing heavy against Damian Maia. It looked like he slowed down a bit in that fight. Even against Nate Diaz, you know, he seems to recover well between rounds, but he was puffing pretty hard in that fight. I think Usman's strategy here will be, he doesn't want to be standing on the feet with Masvidal. Masvidal's the better boxer. I'm not saying Masvidal's going to come out and just, you know, it's going to be completely one-sided on the feet. He's got those weird levers where he throws shots, but you don't realise his length is as long as it is because of the way like he turns over his shots. It's quite hard to describe, but I think it catches people by surprise how long his actual reach is when he throws his shots. But so, you know, he has improved on the feet, but if you watch the Colby fight, he does get hit a lot in that fight by Colby, way more than you would have thought before the fight happened. And he looked like he got stunned, to be honest, a few times against Colby as well. But he did go to the body well, use that right to the straight up the middle to the body well. It won't work against Masvidal because Masvidal's orthodox, Colby's southpaw, but he throws the teep pretty well to the body as well. You know, he can throw stuff like that. He's not going to be worried about getting taken down, so he can fire the teep out. But I think the strategy is to just put Masvidal on the fence, wear him down, take him down when he can, and apply his wrestling basically. Masvidal is obviously going to want to keep the fight standing. We saw Masvidal controlled by Damian Maia for long stretches of their 3-round fight. Now Damian Maia is different in that he was taking Masvidal down, but Masvidal was popping back up to his feet, at least in the first couple of rounds. But Maia managed to neutralise him by like taking his back, which is something Usman can't do. So what you're probably going to see, I would have thought early on, at least until Masvidal starts to slow, which you suspect he will. Now, I know he was helping Dustin Poirier, but he's still not going to be in fight shape. you know, he's flying out very late. He's got weight to cut, about 20 odd pounds. Flew out yesterday, I believe. So, you know, nothing seems ideal for him here against a guy like Usman, whose cardio is just ridiculous. The guy doesn't slow down at all across 5 rounds. So I imagine early he's probably going to have some difficulty keeping Masvidal on the mat. That's why I think he might use a lot of kind of control against the fence, mix in some takedowns where he can get them, but I just think Masvidal is probably going to pop up to his feet, at least to begin with. But Usman needs to stick to that strategy, wear him down, and I think he'll probably start having more success with holding him down and controlling him on the floor as the fight goes on. And Masvidal's going to have to just try and keep it on the feet and land some solid shots on Usman. I mean, we know he's got KO power. Since he moved up to welterweight, he's been putting people away. We saw him put Darren Till away. He had Nate Diaz in all sorts of trouble. We obviously all saw the Ben Askren fight, low percentage, but still put him away. Put Donald Cerrone away. The guy has power, and Usman, you know, he's never really been hit by a good striker. So, you know, on the feet, this will be interesting, but I really don't see Usman messing around on the feet too much. I think the line's kind of accurate. He's sitting at around minus 300, 75% chance he wins. Those odds are saying, and I think that's pretty accurate. He did open, or I did see him, he was at Bet Online at minus 220. I kind of wish I'd put some action on that now, but I hadn't had enough time to, when I saw that line, I hadn't had enough time to digest the fight or do a bit of tape, because I'd done tape on Usman Burns and I needed to go back and just look at some Masvidal tape. There is not a great deal of grappling tape to go off recently. It was, you know, you look at the Maya fight mainly. So it's an interesting fight, but I just don't really see Masvidal winning this fight. I think, you know, Masvidal has been a little bit overhyped. He's kind of got into the public consciousness with his last few fights, but I just think stylistically it's a tough fight for Maz, and short notice doesn't help. But I do think this fight probably goes to 5 rounds. So I'm still waiting for the props to come out. Fight goes to a decision is even money. Fight doesn't go to a decision, minus 140. No, I don't see Usman being able to stop Masvidal. He's never been KO'd. He's got 1 KO loss. It was a premature stoppage years and years ago. He can be dropped, but he recovers really well. I think the only way Usman stops him is if Masvidal's cardio completely lets him down, and he just gasses bad in the championship rounds, and Usman's able to force some kind of ground and pound stoppage, but I don't see it. But plus 100 for a 5-round fight. I'll be interested to see the props that come out, like Usman decision, see where that lies. The over 4.5 it's going to be fairly similar. It's going to be it's going to be minus money, so it's never great laying minus money on a fight goes to a decision over 5 rounds, especially at welterweight. But it just everything points to, unless Masvidal gets an early knockout, everything points to it going to a decision. But I'll wait to see some props. But I have to pick Usman there. I think the line's about right. I don't think there's really any value on the current line. Anyone that managed to get minus 250 or better probably got a good deal. But I've got to pick Usman there. So that wraps up the card, guys. I'll be back to do the Wednesday card. I'll probably do it on Monday, maybe. I've pretty much capped the whole card. I've got a couple of fights to do today. Then that's that card wrapped up. And then we've got the card on the Saturday, so I'll probably do that midweek. So it's full on schedule at the minute. As I said at the start, if you want to sign up for the membership, guys, ProMMABetting.com, packages are on there. 95% of our members are with us for the year. £195 only for the year. Last year, £100 unit members won 14,500. So good luck with your bets. Any questions, You can get me on Twitter at Pro MMA Betting. DMs are open, or any comments you want to drop on the video. And please give the video the thumbs up as well. Good luck, everyone, and I'll be back in a few days.